At Christmas dinner my stepmom said you're a waste of space. So I smiled and stopped transferring funds into the business that's been keeping them afloat since 2019. I'd love for you to be part of this family. Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I promise your comment doesn't go unseen. The cranberry sauce was still warm when Elaine decided to destroy me. I'm talking about Christmas dinner 2024. The kind where the table's set with my grandmother's china, and everyone's pretending we're the perfect blended family. I'd driven 4 hours from Atlanta with homemade pecan pies because that's what you do, right? You show up. You smile. You swallow the disrespect. Laura, sweetheart, could you pass the rolls? My dad asked, his voice carrying that careful tone he'd perfected since marrying Elaine 5 years ago. I reached for the basket, but Elaine's manicured hand shot out first. Robert, maybe we should talk about what's actually important tonight. Her eyes locked on me with that predatory gleam I'd learned to recognize. Like how your daughter still hasn't figured out her life at 28. My younger stepbrother, Marvin, smirked into his wine glass. He was 23, still living in my childhood bedroom, unemployed except for his consulting work, which meant playing video games and asking Dad for money. I have a career, Elaine. I'm a financial analyst. For now, she interrupted, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. But we all know those corporate jobs are unstable. Unlike family businesses. She gestured around the dining room of the house I grew up in, the one Dad had signed over to her for estate planning purposes 2 years ago. That's when she said it. Crystal clear, cutting through the artificial Christmas cheer like a machete. You're a waste of space, Laura. Always have been. The room went silent except for the crackling fireplace. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. I smiled. Wide and genuine. Because Elaine had no idea what I'd been funding since 2019. My smile confused her. Elaine's face flickered, just for a second, with uncertainty before she recovered, taking a long sip of the Chateau Margaux I'd brought. $85 a bottle, not that anyone said thank you. Something funny, Laura? She set down her glass with a sharp click. No, ma'am. Just appreciating the honesty. I folded my napkin carefully, bought myself 3 seconds to steady my voice. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably another alert from the business account. The account nobody at this table knew belonged to me. Dad finally found his spine. Elaine, that was uncalled for. Robert, please. She touched his arm with practiced gentleness, the same gesture I'd watched her use to manipulate him for 5 years. I'm only being realistic. Laura needs to understand that family comes first. Real family. There was. Real family. Like I wasn't blood, like I hadn't spent 23 years in this house before she showed up at Dad's hardware store with a broken cabinet hinge and calculated tears about her difficult divorce. My stepsister, Janelle, 26 and Elaine's clone, finally spoke up. Mom's right, Daddy Robert. Laura's always been so independent. Never really committed to what matters. She smiled at me, all teeth and venom. Independent. That's what they called it when I refused to co-sign the business loan 3 years ago. When I wouldn't hand over my inheritance from Grandma Pearl, the only thing that survived Elaine's financial takeover. I'm very committed, I said softly, to exactly what matters. Marvin laughed. Yeah, to that boring job and that tiny apartment in Atlanta. Real impressive, sis. Not my sis. Never my anything. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing distance from Elaine's satisfied smirk. In the hallway, I passed family photos she'd systematically replaced. Mom's pictures gone, replaced with Elaine's staged professional shots. Mom, who died of ovarian cancer when I was 14, reduced to a single frame hidden in my old closet. My phone buzzed again. I pulled it out, staring at the banking app notification. Transfer due. DNP Hardware Solutions $8,500.00. DNP Hardware Solutions. Dad and Elaine's thriving business, according to family dinner conversations. The expansion into 3 new locations. The commercial contracts. The success story Elaine loved bragging about at her bougie book club. What Elaine didn't know, what nobody knew, was that Grandma Pearl had left me more than the house inheritance Elaine tried to contest. She'd left me investment properties in Columbus, 3 of them, purchased back in the 90s when the neighborhood was undesirable. Now, each one cleared about $4,000 monthly in rental income. I'd been quiet about it. Kept my inheritance lawyer separate, my accounts private, my success invisible. Because I'd learned early with Elaine. Show strength and she'll find ways to weaponize it. Show wealth and she'll find ways to claim it. But I'd been generous. Anonymously generous. In 2019, when Dad's hardware store faced bankruptcy after a supplier scandal, an angel investor had appeared. Monthly transfers. 8,000, sometimes 10,000, keeping inventory stocked, payroll met, expansion possible. The investor? My LLC buried under paperwork 3 corporate layers deep. I'd watched Elaine take credit for saving the business with her management skills. Watched her buy a BMW with profits I'd enabled. Watched her treat Dad like her personal ATM while treating me like garbage. The bathroom mirror reflected someone I barely recognized. Tired eyes, forced smile, defensive posture. When had I become this small? I splashed cold water on my face, memories flooding back unbidden. There was a time right after Dad married Elaine when I'd tried. God, I tried so hard. Laura. Check this out. Janelle had burst into my room that first month holding up a dress. Your dad bought me this for the spring dance. Isn't he the best? I'd been 17, grieving mom, watching my father replace her with terrifying speed. But Janelle had seemed excited, maybe even nervous. It's pretty, I'd offered. We could be real sisters, she'd said, sitting on my bed. I always wanted a sister. Marvin is such a pain. For 6 months I'd believed her. We'd done sister things, shared clothes, studied together, complained about parents. I'd helped her with college applications, driven her to parties, covered for her when she snuck out to see some guy named Devin. Then came the day I'd overheard her on the phone with her friend. Yeah, I'm playing nice. Mom says it's important to make Robert feel like we're all one big happy family until everything's finalized. Then Laura can go back to whatever rock she crawled under. Mom already has plans for converting her room into a home office. I'd been 19. The betrayal had carved itself into my bones. Now 7 years later, that betrayal had calcified into armor. I dried my hands slowly, thinking about the business account, about 5 years of silent support, about being called a waste of space. My phone lit up with a text from Dad. Honey, please come back. Elaine didn't mean it. Elaine always meant it. I walked back into the dining room with my shoulders straight. The conversation stopped abruptly. They'd been talking about me, obviously. Everything okay, sweetheart? Dad asked, his eyes pleading for peace. Always pleading for peace, ever since he'd chosen Elaine over defending me. Perfect. I reclaimed my seat, took a bite of the turkey I'd brought, the one I'd brined for 12 hours because Elaine claimed she was too busy with business to cook. Elaine cleared her throat. As I was saying before the interruption, Robert and I have exciting news about the business. She preened, touching the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist. We're expanding again. A 4th location in Marietta. The commercial real estate broker thinks we could be looking at $500,000 in additional annual revenue. That's ambitious, I said neutrally. Well, when you're good at something. Elaine trailed off, letting the implication hang. When you're good at something, unlike you, Laura. Of course, it requires significant capital investment. Robert and I have been discussing various funding options. My stepbrother Marvin leaned forward. Mom's been killing it with the supplier negotiations. Saved us like 20% on the last lumber order. The lumber order I'd indirectly funded. I bit my tongue. Janelle jumped in, ever the loyal daughter. And Mama's marketing strategy? Genius. Our Instagram following tripled. It's amazing what proper management can accomplish, Elaine said, meeting my eyes directly. When you actually understand business instead of just pushing papers at some corporate job that could eliminate you tomorrow. Dad winced. Elaine. I'm just being honest, Robert. Laura needs to hear these things. She's family, even if... Elaine paused delicately. Even if she doesn't quite fit. Even if she doesn't quite fit. The words echoed in my head as I mechanically cut my turkey. I'd heard variations of this for 5 years, but tonight felt different. Tonight felt like a culmination. Tell them about the consultant, babe. Marvin urged his mother, practically bouncing. Elaine's smile widened. Oh yes. We've hired a business consultant. Someone who really understands growth strategy. He's projecting we could franchise within 3 years. Franchise. With my money. My silent, invisible money. That's the Blake Harrison, right, Mom? Janelle asked. The one from Chicago? The very same. He's flying in next week to assess our operations. Elaine turned to me, her expression carefully arranged into false concern. You know, Laura, if you're ever worried about your job security, I suppose we could find you something. Reception maybe. Filing. Something simple. The basement door slammed, Uncle Fabian arriving late as always. Dad's younger brother, the only person who'd consistently called out Elaine's behavior. He appeared in the doorway, massive and imposing in his Morehouse College sweatshirt, taking in the scene with shrewd eyes. Family drama already? Fabian's voice boomed. Haven't even served dessert yet. Fabian. Dad stood grateful for the interruption. We saved you a plate. Better be turkey and not that dried chicken y'all tried to serve last year. He moved to embrace me, whispering so only I could hear, "You good niece?" I nodded, throat tight. Uncle Fabian had been the one to help me process Mom's death, to call out Dad's rushed remarriage, to question Elaine's motives. He'd also been systematically excluded from family events. Tonight was his first Christmas dinner in 3 years. You invited Fabian? Elaine's voice carried an edge. He's my brother, Dad said weakly. Of course. Family. Elaine's tone made the word sound like a threat. Uncle Fabian settled into his chair with the confidence of a man who refused to be intimidated. At 6'3" with the build of his former NFL days, he commanded space Elaine couldn't reclaim. So what did I miss? He loaded his plate with turkey, dressing, greens, ignoring Elaine's icy stare. Y'all talking about the business? Heard it's doing real good lately. We're expanding, Marvin said quickly. 4th location. Mom's a genius. Huh. Fabian chewed thoughtfully. That's interesting. 'Cause I remember when that business was about to go under. 2019, wasn't it? Right before that mystery investor showed up. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. We had a difficult period, Elaine said carefully. But Robert and I worked through it. Smart management, careful planning, and monthly cash injections of $8,000 to $10,000. Fabian locked eyes with her. Funny how that works. Almost like someone was propping up the whole operation. My heart hammered. How did Fabian know? Dad shifted uncomfortably. Fabian, we've discussed this. The investor wants to remain anonymous. Right. Anonymous. Very convenient. Fabian turned to me. Laura, Baby girl, you ever think about investing in family businesses? I felt Elaine's attention snap to me like a targeting laser. I don't have that kind of capital, I said, the lie smooth from years of practice. Really? 'Cause your grandma Pearl was pretty savvy with money. Those properties she left you in Columbus. 3 of them, right? Fixed 'em up real nice, I heard. Rental income must be decent. Elaine's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. What properties? Nothing worth discussing, I said quickly. Too quickly. Fabian smiled, slow and dangerous. Nothing worth discussing. Just like that anonymous investor isn't worth discussing. Silence crashed over the table like a wave. Laura has properties? Elaine's voice was dangerously soft. The voice she used right before going for the throat. Ancient history, I said, my hands gripping my napkin under the table. Grandma left them to me. They're just small rentals. Barely break even. Uncle Fabian snorted into his sweet tea. Barely break even. That's modest. Fabian, please, Dad interjected. This isn't the time. When is the time, Rob? Fabian set down his fork with controlled precision. When's the time to talk about how your daughter gets treated like an outsider in her own family home? When she brings the wine, the pies, drives 4 hours to be here and gets called a waste of space. You heard that? I whispered. Door was open when I came in. Heard plenty. He turned to Elaine, his expression hardening. You got some nerve, woman. Real talk. Elaine recovered quickly, rearranging her face into wounded dignity. I apologize if my words were harsh, but someone needs to be honest with Laura. She's drifting, no real plan, no commitment to family. She's a financial analyst making 6 figures, Fabian interrupted. Got her own place, her own life, her own investments. What more you want? 6 figures. I'd never told anyone the exact number, but Fabian had always had his ways of knowing things. Dad's eyes widened. He'd thought I made maybe 60,000, based on my carefully maintained fiction of struggling. 6 figures. Janelle laughed, the sound sharp with disbelief. Doing what exactly? Portfolio management for corporate clients, I said quietly. Risk assessment. Investment strategy. And those Columbus properties? Elaine's mind was visibly calculating, recalibrating years of assumptions. How much are they worth? Uncle Fabian leaned back, arms crossed. Now why would that be any of your business, Elaine? Because we're family, she snapped, mask slipping. And family shares resources. Family supports each other. Like y'all supported Laura? Fabian's voice could have cut steel. That what we calling it? The air was suffocating. Marvin and Janelle exchanged glances. They'd never seen their mother cornered before. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear into the wallpaper, his default setting when conflict arose. I think, Elaine said, standing abruptly, we should discuss this privately. Robert, Laura, perhaps we could step into your office. Nah, we good right here, Fabian said. Family meeting, right? Let's keep it in the family. Elaine's jaw tightened. Fine. Or I'll be direct. If you have significant assets, these properties your salary, then perhaps it's time you contributed more substantially to this family. Your father has supported you your entire life. Now we're building something and we could use. Use what? I heard myself say, my voice stronger than I felt. Use my money? Like you've been using the anonymous investor's money. Her eyes flashed. That's completely different. That's a business arrangement. So would this be? I stood too, matching her energy. A business arrangement where I fund your expansion, your lifestyle, your consultant from Chicago, and what? Get called a waste of space at every family dinner. I apologized for that. No, you didn't. The words came out hard, final. You said, if your words were harsh. You didn't apologize. You never apologize, Elaine. You just reposition and attack from a different angle. Dad finally spoke. Laura, honey, we're all just trying to. Trying to what, Dad? I turned on him, years of swallowed hurt rising like bile. Trying to make this work? I've been trying. I've been trying since I was 14 years old, since Mom died and you couldn't handle being alone for even 6 months. I tried with Elaine. I tried with Marvin and Janelle. I showed up, I smiled, I helped, I accepted being erased from my own family history. My voice cracked, but I pushed through. And it's never enough. It's never been enough. Because you won't commit. Elaine's composure shattered. You won't fully join this family. You keep yourself separate, superior, judging us. I keep myself separate? I laughed, the sound bitter. You redecorated my childhood home within 6 months. Removed every picture of my mother. Moved Marvin into my bedroom. Put your daughter in Mom's office. You signed Dad into refinancing the house he owned outright. The house Mom helped him buy. And I'm the one who won't commit. That's not fair, Janelle protested. Mama was just making the house hers. It was never hers. The words exploded out of me. This was my mother's house. Her dream. She picked the paint colors, she planted the garden, she hosted Thanksgiving here for 20 years. And Elaine erased her in 6 months like she never existed. Dad's face crumpled. Laura, I didn't realize you felt. You didn't realize because you didn't ask. You just let Elaine do whatever she wanted because it was easier than dealing with your grief. Than dealing with me grieving. Uncle Fabian spoke quietly. Tell them, baby girl. Tell them about the money. My chest heaved. This was it. The moment everything changed or everything ended. The anonymous investor? My voice shook. That's me. It's been me since 2019. My LC, my rental income, my inheritance from Grandma Pearl. I've been funding your business expansion for 5 years. $8,000 to $10,000 a month. Almost $500,000 total. The silence was absolute. Elaine's face went through a rapid evolution. Shock, calculation, rage, then something like hunger. You've been, all this time. All this time, I confirmed. While you took credit for saving the business. While you called me unfocused and directionless and a waste of space. I was the one keeping you afloat. Marvin stammered. But why? Why would you? Because he's my father. I shouted, pointing at Dad. Because I loved him even when he chose you over me, even when he let Elaine erase Mom, even when he stood by while you all treated me like an outsider. I did it for him, you ungrateful. You had no right. Elaine's voice shook with rage. You had no right to manipulate us like that. To hide your involvement. That's fraud. Uncle Fabian barked a laugh. Fraud? The girl invested in a business through proper legal channels. Nothing fraudulent about it. What's fraudulent is taking money for 5 years and treating the investor like trash. We didn't know it was her. Janelle defended. Would it have mattered? I asked. If you'd known it was me funding your BMW, Elaine? Your designer bags? Your European vacation last summer while I canceled my plans because someone needed an emergency $10,000 for inventory? Dad found his voice broken and small. Laura, baby, why didn't you tell me? Because you would have told Elaine. And Elaine would have. I paused, gesturing helplessly. Would have done exactly what she's doing now. Made it about her. Made it wrong somehow. Found a way to take more while giving less. That's not true, Elaine said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Uncle Fabian challenged. What were you about to ask her for before the truth came out? Before you knew she was the investor? You were about to hit her up for money for the Marietta expansion, weren't you? Elaine's silence was confirmation. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out my phone with trembling hands. I'm going to stop the transfers. Effective immediately. The business can stand on its actual profits now. 5 years is enough of me propping up your fantasy. You can't do that. Marvin blurted. The Marietta deal needs. Not my problem. I opened my banking app, my fingers surprisingly steady. The consultant, the franchise plans, the 4th location. Figure it out yourselves. You're such brilliant managers, right? Such savvy business people. Prove it. I paused at the confirmation screen. 5 years of support ending with a tap. Laura, please. Dad's voice cracked. Don't do this. We can talk, we can fix. Fix what, Dad? Fix me being called a waste of space. Fix 5 years of contempt and disrespect. My finger hovered over the button. Cancel recurring transfer. 1 tap. That's all it would take. You'll ruin us, Elaine said, her voice hollow. The contracts are signed. The lease on the Marietta property. The equipment orders. If you pull funding now, then you should have thought about that before tonight. I looked at my father, really looked at him. Gray hair, tired eyes, shoulders slumped under the weight of choices he couldn't take back. Dad, I loved you enough to support your dream for 5 years. I watched you marry someone who hates me. I watched you let her erase Mom. I kept quiet and kept paying because I hoped, I don't know, that eventually you'd see. That eventually you'd choose me. I do choose you, baby girl. I always. You don't. The words were gentle but final. You choose peace. You choose whatever's easiest. You chose Elaine over defending me every single time it mattered. And that's your right. But it's also my right to stop funding it. This is emotional blackmail, Elaine accused, recovering some fire. You're punishing us for 1 comment. 1 comment. Uncle Fabian's laugh was harsh. Lady, I've been watching you tear this girl down for 5 years. The comment tonight was just the first one Laura actually responded to. Janelle spoke up, her voice small. We thought you were okay. You always seemed fine. I got very good at seeming fine. I met her eyes, remembering the sister I'd thought I had. You taught me that. Pretend until it's real. Only it never became real, did it? She looked away. I pressed the button. Confirm cancellation. It's done, I said softly. The last transfer will process on January 1st. After that, you're on your own. Elaine's face went through rage, denial, desperation. Robert, do something. She can't, you're her father. And what would you have me do? Dad's voice was raw. I already lost her. 5 years ago. I just didn't realize it. The truth of his words hung in the air like smoke after a fire. I collected my coat from the closet, the one near where Mom's pictures used to hang. Uncle Fabian followed, his presence a solid wall between me and the chaos erupting in the dining room. Elaine was arguing with Dad, her voice shrill with panic about accountants and revenue projections. Marvin and Janelle sat frozen, their perfect world cracking. You need a place to stay tonight? Fabian asked. Guest rooms always open. I'm good. Got a hotel in Buckhead. Leaving for Atlanta in the morning. Proud of you, niece. He pulled me into a hug that smelled like Old Spice and safety. Your mama would be too. My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Not here. Not now. You knew, didn't you? About the money? Suspected. You got Pearl's business sense and your mama's heart. Dangerous combination. He smiled. They'll survive this. The business might shrink, but they'll figure it out. Question is, will you be okay? Yeah. I surprised myself with the certainty in my voice. Yeah, I will be. Dad appeared in the hallway, Elaine hovering behind him like a shark scenting blood. Laura, please. Can we just talk? Really talk? Eventually. When you're ready to do it without her. I gestured at Elaine. When you're ready to admit what you let happen. What you let her do to Mom's memory, to me, to us. That's not fair, Elaine started. Life isn't fair, Elaine. You taught me that tonight. I opened the door, December cold rushing in. But here's what is fair. I funded your dream for 5 years. Now you get to fund it yourselves. Enjoy the consultant from Chicago. Enjoy the Marietta expansion. Enjoy pretending you did it all on your own, because from now on you actually will have to. I walked to my car, Fabian beside me. In my rearview mirror, I saw them clustered in the doorway. Dad broken, Elaine calculating her next move, Marvin and Janelle lost without their easy villain. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. Asterisk, I'm sorry. I love you. I'll fix this. Asterisk. I didn't respond. Words were cheap. 5 years of monthly transfers while being called worthless had taught me that actions were all that mattered. I drove toward Atlanta, toward my apartment, toward a life no longer weighted by their expectations and contempt. The road ahead was dark but clear. And for the first time in 5 years I felt light. Behind me, the house where my mother once lived glowed warm in the Christmas lights Elaine had hung. It looked beautiful from the outside. It always had. But I was finally done pretending that beautiful meant home.